22nd, 1988. Today's 7 Sport bid you welcome from Brisbane, the Queensland capital, and host city to World Expo 88. Leisure in the age of technology is the theme of our World Fair. It's also applicable to the life and times of Dick Johnson, who starts today's round of the Australian Touring Car Championship a clear points leader. He presently holds an 18-point break over Colin Bond, John Bowe, Peter Brock and Jimmy Richards. Lakeside International Raceway is the battleground for today's 6th episode of the Shell Ultra Series. The 2.4k action track is perhaps the country's liveliest layout. During our 3-hour feast of motorsport mayhem, we'll take you to Hockenheim in Germany for the 3rd round of the World Superbike Championships. We look at the latest stateside action as the big boys prepare for the Indy 500, and our cameras also check out what's happening around the globe on 2 and 4 wheels. That's ahead today on Motorsport 88 across the Australian television network, and brought to you by NEC Home Entertainment Systems and Goodyear Eagles for performance all the way home.
Thank you, Mark Raymond. Well, hello and welcome. What a terrific telecast this is going to be. The 6th round of the Australian Touring Car Championship, always at Lakeside, produces a very special race. The crowd here is absolutely enormous. Queenslanders have absolutely streamed out, of course, to cheer on the local hero, Dick Johnson. And he's lived up to his reputation, and why not? He's won pole position at every round of the championship so far this year, and Lakeside is no exception. A phenomenal 3.5 seconds under the lap record, and the Queenslanders are going to cheer themselves hoarse here this afternoon. But the others are getting closer. I know we keep saying that, but Andrew Madecki and the rest of the guys are slowly bridging the gap on Johnson. They pushed him very hard in qualifying here yesterday, and this is going to produce a big result here this afternoon, I feel. 60 laps around Lakeside, tortuous circuit. Conditions, however, are excellent. It is going to be quite a race. Plenty of other action on the program, of course, as well, including that particular series that produces so much action, the Queensland Gemini series. Let's check the grid with Neil Crompton.
One thing we always look forward to, Gary, is this series of racing here in Queensland. A full field of Geminis. What a lineup of cars. 37 in total, and David Gross has pole position in a Gemini. Troy Dunstan alongside on the front row. Row 2, position 3, car 96 is Rod Dawson. From 4, car 5, Kevin Heffernan. Very closely matched on times. Position 5, car 32 is Paul Morris. From 661, Phil Crompton. That's a hard name to remember. From 7-3 is Terry Courtley. From 8-10 is Ray Vincent. From 9, car number 10, Brendan Matters. And from 10, car 51, Jeff Gagan. How close are those times? And believe you me, there is a swag of them tucked in behind who are only fractions behind those guys. There's David Gross. He's in the Crazy's Comedy Restaurant Gemini. How did he stitch that together?
I'm not sure. It was a comedy of errors. Getting ready for the start. And they're racing. You and I and Gemini. Off they go. Very quickly, David Gross on the outside looking for the run to the right-hander, but he's been gathered in by Troy Dunstan. Dawson making a good start, so too Heffernan. Down to the first right-hander. Traffic congestion at a premium here today at Lakeside International Raceway. Gross going in deeper than anyone, trying to get out and around the outside of Dunstan here as they swing through the carousel. Exit Yokohama corner. Some wide lines, some rallycross there as well. They're all through that turn and heading down now to the sweeper.
Tremendous start. David Gross looked as though he'd come out a little worse for wear off the line, but he's managed to regain that territory side by side with Troy Dunstan, who heads down now to Hungary Corner. Sections of this circuit have been resurfaced for our visit up here this weekend, and it's very fast. This is one of them. You can see the new bitumen there, and it's Dunstan who's come back in the lead. He's Charlie O'Brien's nephew, 25-year-old from the Gold Coast, doing very well in his Gemini racing. David Gross tucked right in behind it. Look how close these guys are, nose to tail, as they come off the top of the Motorcraft hill.
Coming down through Castrol. 96 is still restless. One's gone out, found the guardrail, out of the rough, bounce back onto the bitumen, the smooth bitumen there. Pretty rough as you get down through the kink area here, heading down to the right-hander. Still Dunstan though, race leader. Gross coming back at him again, taps right in there, looks for the inside as they go into the carousel for the second time.
David Gross was the champion in this class last year, and Troy Dunstan finished second to him, so the battle rages into 1988. There's Dawson in 96. 32 in behind him is Paul Morris. He qualified well.
And Jeff Gagan also has made a good start. He's up there running at about 5th at the moment. Through the sweeper, under the bridge.
Michael Preston, the young driver we see doing well from Bridgestone and Holden Motorsport in production car racing, came from this class and won this series back in 1986. Oh, Troy gets right out, uses a bit of grass to make sure he gets the advantage of every little bit of the road. How do they keep them cool? I mean, there's no air going in the front of about 90% of the field.
Coming down Motorcraft Hill through Castrol. Fans getting a great show here. I tell you what, they're right on the point here as they work the start-finishing straight. And you'll find it's still Dunstan leading, sitting right in behind him. Here's Gross, there's one gone, 32. End of the guardrail. Not too much damage there, just buffing the tyres.
Paul Morris.
He's going to sit there. Well, at least wait until the rest of the field goes by anyway. Still Dunstan out of the Yokohama corner. Gross sits very, very close to him as they work their way down to the sweeper. Some of the best action from any circuit in Australia you'll find here at Lakeside International Raceway. Huge crowd in attendance today, as Gary Wilkinson mentioned earlier. They've come out to support Dick Johnson. They've got some exciting warm-up events, though, for your enjoyment. This is one of them.
Isn't it a great circuit? It's got everything. It's pretty rough in a couple of spots. The surface has been improved in others. It's uphill, down dale, hard braking. And the average lap speed here is much quicker than probably meets the eye. Touring cars getting around a lap average of about 100 miles an hour. These guys are thinking at 100 miles an hour at the moment.
Dawson there running in third. Gagan is fourth. Start, finish straight as they come down to the left-hand kick. Let's have a look at what happened before. Our NEC replay. It's just a case of a tap in the tail, out into the guardrail, and buffing the tyres and the back bumper at the same time.
I think he got a little help from somebody there, but I don't quite know how it happened. Troy Dunstan at the moment from David Gross. Career that spans 126 races and all bar 12 in Geminis.
What's on now for young and old?
Actually, looking at David's statistics in this class, pretty impressive. He's won 31 Gemini races. He's taken second place 36 times. He's made another 36 visits to the winner's rostrum to collect third place laurels. It's not a bad performance. These two guys both drove last year Peter Brock's test day when he ran some younger guys in the cars. They both did very good. There's Gagan in 51. He's through to third now. I think he's managed to open up a couple of Gemini lengths over fourth and fifth.
Maybe the name's rubbed off. Different spelling, but...
Tell you what, Gross has finally got to the front. Heading down to the carousel this time. That drops Dunstan back to second, but Dunstan, I think you'll find, will... Whoop! No, he's gone. He had everything set up properly, Gross, but unfortunately overdid it, got it around sideways, and has paid the penalty at the carousel.
Gross's car is sponsored, as you probably saw, by Crazies, which is a restaurant which he owns, and it could apply to the colour scheme on the car as well.
Certainly could. He made a gross mistake there. Heading down to a Hungary corner. There's the gap now that we find that Troy Dunstan has opened up over the rest of the field. I can't recall a gap like that in a Gemini race ever before. Gagan hasn't done bad at all. He started out of 10, he's now up to second.
These are the biggest gaps we've ever seen between these guys in first and second. There's Rob Dawson in third, 96. 69 has gone spiralling off. That's Robert Deering.
That's the Victor Awards for the day.
Clive Peacey in the yellow car.
The exit to Motorcraft Hill at Castrol has certainly caught a few of them out.
Terry Courtley in car number 3. He's moved up into what, fourth place now behind Dawson. All chasing this man, Troy Dunstan, leader in the series to date.
Isn't he related to Charlie O'Brien?
Nephew.
Right.
Down through the sweeper. Good scrap going on for third. There's Rod Dawson going through. beneath the bridge down towards Hungary Corner. They set them up through here and just give them a little courtesy breathe. Here's Dawson and Courtley hard at it.
Courtley, of course, has been one of the leading campaigners in this series in Queensland for many a long year. And still got the car running in fine shape. And certainly putting a lot of pressure on the car up ahead of him at the moment.
I can't get over how many of them make the rough coming out of Castro. Here's Courtley now on the inside of Dawson. And one wheel out in the grass that time. Do you think these cars look exciting around the tight confines of Lakeside? Wait till we show you the touring cars a little later on. They're absolutely on the point all the time through the King.
The timekeeper's having trouble reading his number.
Could be. They go through beneath the bridge.
Oh, this is the scary part of the circuit, especially if you're hanging a wheel off the edge like that.
He's been consistent. He's hung one off in just about every corner. Not that time. Oh, the inside. Little gap just opened there, but it closed just as quickly. Over the top of Motorcraft Hill. With about a lap and a quarter still to run. Courtley sits right in behind Dawson.
You can just feel it, can't you?
Yes,
you can sense what's going to happen here.
They're dicing for third. Dunstan, though, is still out in front, but he's got a challenger here. Jeff Gagan. And he's just trying to get this corner spot on. The leader's gone a bit wobbly halfway through there.
Well, Gagan's done a mighty job to come off 10th position on the grid to be up and challenging for the lead here with time running out, about a lap to go.
Well, less than a lap now. They're on their last. So Dunstan defending pretty vigorously at the moment from Gagan. And then this magnificent scrap between Dawson and Courtley. I think Rod just squeezing away a little bit now.
Yes, I think the scrap for the lead could be interesting, particularly if Gagan get any closer. The leader's feeling a bit of the pressure, let me tell you. Gagan has caught him now. Now if he can just get the next corner right, he could be in here in the box seat. It's going to take the role of the enforcer, though. Let me tell you, in the sprint to the flag, Troy Dunstan coming out of the last corner. Gagan sits in behind him. Is he going to come pull out of the draft? Yes, he's going to try the inside as they make it across the line. How close will they be? It will go, in fact, to Troy Dunstan. Gagan picking up second. Look pretty close.
Yeah,
I'll immediately get off the fence now. Everyone will say, oh, that was close.
I'll toss you a coin on this one, Mike. I reckon it was closer than that.
Well, I think it'll go to Dunstan.
I think we'll call for a photo.
I was going to call it the other way. I thought Gagan got it on the line.
Well, you're a betting man, Wilco. We'll call for the photo on this one.
Well, the way I've been going, I'd lose money, but I'll put it on Gagan. I mean, I'm so far in debt now, it doesn't matter.
It's great stuff, Gemini Racing. Good, close, hard, fast racing, and for a reasonable cost, and some excellent driving from Troy Dunstan, Jeff Gagan, Rod Dawson, and Terry Courtley. We'll check those placings on our Castrol scoreboard.
Yeah, I've got the money.
Gets the win, 51. Troy Dunstan in second place. Rod Dawson third, 96. Terry Courtley in fourth place, car number 3. And Brendan Matters finishing fifth in car 10.
I was wrong.
Even my old man looks good.
With crowds these days, or the lack of them, the problem has certainly never surfaced at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Indy is America's shrine of speed. It's also the home of the 500, the race the publicists like to call the greatest spectacle in auto racing. Next Sunday, 375,000 spectators will pay to watch the 1988 edition of the Indy Classic. Tradition is everything at the Indiana Brickyard, and it's been that way since Ray Haroon drove to victory in the very first Enduro. The list of short price favourites includes the Andretti family, Papa Mario, who last won back in 1968, and his talented offspring Michael, a consistent winner on the kart IndyCar trail, but still to crack it at the 500. Rick Mears is the driver perhaps best remembered for the closest Indy finish in history 3 years ago.
Gordon Johncock in the STP entry grabbed the lead from Mears in the final set of pit stops. However, Mears staged a remarkable charge through the field to catch the Portland, Oregon driver 5 laps from the finish. The two drivers then played nip and tuck at 185 miles an hour. Johncock getting the nod by the barest of margins. Indy has always provided the unexpected, like the 86 incident involving Downey Sullivan, who died beneath race leader Mario Andretti. But a 360-degree spin at 195 miles an hour gave him an anxious moment. He recovered to go on and win. Last year's qualifying produced no shortage of contact with the retaining wall in turn 4. Cars were demolished on almost a daily basis, though in the race itself, veteran Al Unser won with consummate ease after Roberto Guerrero lost in the pits. Only major incident from last weekend's final qualifying involved former winner Johnny Rutherford. Lone Star JR walloped the wall at quite a clip. He was shaken, but after a checkup was allowed to leave hospital. While Formula One purists still have problems accepting Indy as legitimate, the Americans can proudly boast the 500 attracts the biggest one-day sporting attendance anywhere in the world. Sentimental favourite for next weekend's Indy Classic is Mario Andretti. Others have been trying to follow in his footsteps for decades. Who knows, maybe our own Niels on Wheels might be considering a visit to the Brickyard.
Crompton is the epitome of success. He's worked hard for his reward, setting up his first company at just 15 and working his way into the media with unbridled determination. He arrived at 7 in the days of the red jacket. Like all of us, he was confused by the machines, more confused by Clive Robertson, and to be honest, the kid took some training.
2 cars and make them look perhaps just a little, it's mumbly. I'll get it right this time, I promise. Aussie fans have cheered and jeered their tin top... Aussie fans have cheered and jeered their
But there was something burning deep inside this man who can't sit still. Crompton was born to drive, weaned on the world on wheels. The kid developed into a motocross champion with a dream and a hero. Peter Brock was Porsche and Ferrari rolled into one.
You go right back to 1970 and I was only this big standing next to Peter Brock and looking up and saying, "Excuse me, mister, can I get an autograph?" And anybody who really knows me, I mean the old mates, know that I've always wanted to do this and I always wanted to get there, and I figured I would. It was just a matter of time and how the cards were dealt out.
Now he's an integral part of the Brock organisation. In fact, last week he beat the boss in his BMW, putting it on the second row of the grid.
There'll be 1,000 young guys out there with licences, with talent, who maybe don't get the breaks. But life is about making your own breaks. You know, the Tooth Fairy didn't come along and give me my career. I had to work for it.
Crompton is a multimedia personality, writing magazine articles and filing reports for Sydney's #1 breakfast show, the outrageous Jaguar freak Doug Mulray and Mercedes man David White.
Niels on Wheels croppers that Recaro rat and oily urchin from the garage has the latest IDAP figures on European car registrations for the month of March.
I like this. I have a feeling of power. It's like ratings time and the mighty Whitey and Dougie are totally on the hook.
Let's see. Well, suffer in your jocks, guys. Volvo thrashed both your boys. They won in March and
lead the year-to-date figures comfortably. And here's a bright spot. Sixth, I say, were Jaguar, having sold a grand total of 71 little pommy pussycats. Wood grain and oil leaks must be out this month, Dougie. Neil Crompton.
Triple M News.
Niels on Wheels raced a Mazda RX-7 at his second start. He swapped places with Dick Johnson, who had some advice from the commentary box.
We watch him, mate. I tell you what, if he drove half as good as he talks, he'd be looking real good. Yes, I tell you what. Excuse me.
Well, he's taken care of Russell Kramer.
Yeah.
Bob Tyndall takes second place and Crompton third.
How are you for socks and underwear?
Neil Crompton, Seven's own man in a hurry. He'll form part of the Peter Brock 3-car team for the Amaroo Park round of the Touring Car Championship. After this break, we'll go overboard on Formula Ford.
I'm knocking on my door. She wants to roll the road up, but get down on the floor. She said, let's ride.
one other class of motor racing has enjoyed such long-term success. Formula Ford knows close hard racing and provides motorsport newcomers with a stable, valuable stepping stone to build skill and engineering knowledge. The Motorcraft Formula Ford Driver to Europe series has long delivered the goods. It's got all the ingredients for success, as history shows. So what is a Formula Ford? To begin with, they come from many different manufacturers. Some cars old, some cars new, and give or take, most are very evenly matched. A 1600cc single-cam pushrod Ford engine propels a variety of chassis. They're all 4-speed, weigh 485 kilograms, including the driver, use identical rubber, and are complex enough to bring out the best in team engineers. But why are they so competitive?
Well, I think it's an established way to the top, and the people understand if they go well in Formula Ford, it does help them get to the top, but competition, and that's what it's all about. I think that's why it makes the racing so good.
Because of the rules we've got, they're very stringent, and the competitors enforce them themselves, so there's no room for cheating, and the fellas are out to get each other, and that's what makes it fair. It's like a fast Formula V race, which is excellent.
That's the whole basis of the formula, is the fact that the cars are so closely matched as far as performance. The rules are so tight that it sort of negates the car to a certain degree, and it just comes into drivers' skill with driving and also being able to adjust the car to suit a circuit.
I think generally the nature of the formula, all the cars being the same, you know, engines being relatively the same horsepower, chassis the same, and the level of talent is, I'd say, fairly similar. You know, all those ingredients make very close racing, and the competitiveness of the people involved. You know, because it's such an important formula, you know, people really have to get ahead.
The message is clear. When motorsports authorities provide a stable, long-term technical blueprint, rigidly enforced, the quality of racing is A-grade. Unlike the tail-chasing effect generated by sporting evolutions in touring car racing, Formula Ford has and always will be based on one set of rules.
Well, that's one of the great things about the formula. The rules haven't changed for years and years and years, and it might be a message to cams, but that's the only way you can get a strong formula, is that you keep the rules the same year after year so people can budget for it.
If you want to ride in Formula Ford, the costs are varied. But if you buy the state-of-the-art English-built Van Diemen RF88, it'll set you back about $26,000 for a rolling chassis and about $7,000 for a good engine. Throw in about 40 grand yearly running costs and you've spent about $75,000 on the utopian approach. However, most of today's field will get out of it for considerably less. And if the car is a bit older, you could chop that by less than half. If that's a bit hard to swallow, there is one other way. Formula Ford Race Hire can provide you with a briefcase and aggro-free solution.
Well, when I got back from England, I thought that I had a reasonable amount of experience with Formula Fords, and I thought I could shortcut the way to the top for some people by giving them all my knowledge, and hopefully it helps them get to the top. But unfortunately, you have to pay for such knowledge, and it doesn't come cheap.
So what do you provide?
Well, we provide the whole thing. All they do is turn up with their helmet and drive the car, and then they go home. And we provide everything else: the cars, the transportation, mechanics, the crew, everything involved we supply.
So go it alone or drive your dollar further with a good rental. But make no mistake, this is the best all-round class of Australian motor racing.
Oh, yes, indeed. Welcome back to Lakeside. That's what it's all about. Well, for them, but not for us. This is the motor racing circuit right by the side of the lake. In between races, you can enjoy the view and the recreational facilities adjoining. But it's time for us to get back down to business. Cars are on the track for round 3 of the Formula Ford Driver to Europe series. Let's check the grid as they line up for this. And Andrew Gubb has pole position, car number 9. Oh, Tony Blanche. All right, my sheet is wrong. Martin Carpenter is in second position on the grid, followed by David Roberts, then Roger Martin in 4th spot. Oh, let's start again.
Well, in actual fact, that grid that we're looking at is from the racing car event, the Queensland Racing Car Championship. So I'll give you the Formula Ford grid. Andrew Gubb on pole, Martin Carpenter second, David Roberts third, Mark Larkham position 4, Roger Martin position 5, Simon Kane position 6, Brett Peters position 7, Robert Bennett position 8, Glenn Zampatti position 9, and Mike Mortimer position 10. You shouldn't work without a netbook, eh?
One thing must be said, just how close the field is for this afternoon's round of the Formula 4 Driver to Europe Series. Andrew Gubb, of course, saw in superb form a short time ago at Amaru Park Raceway, been a standout competitor. Of course, in the 2-day FM car. Martin Carpenter, gee, he's having a great run this season as well. And they always do provide very, very spectacular racing.
I believe the second round at Adelaide, just after our Touring Car Championship race there, was an absolute knockout event. And we can look forward to the same today.
Not too long off the start.
Mark Larkham there, car number 21, the yellow car. Not a newcomer, but a new name to the top half dozen.
In the starter's hands. Andrew Gubb getting away very quickly indeed. Carpenter goes with him though on the inside. Just look at what's going on behind them though as they head down to the carousel for the first time. There's certainly not going to be much between Gubb and Carpenter. And in fact it is Andrew Gubb who's got through to take over the lead. Carpenter drops very quickly into second spot. They all make their way through the carousel and they exit at the Yokohama corner.
Gubb the leader, Martin Carpenter sneaking into second. And Andrew's certainly been setting the pace this year. I think I can see David Roberts, the championship leader, lurking around up there as well. He's got 32 points. He's 7 clear of Robert Bennett. Gary Jones third in the series with 23, and Martin Carpenter fourth with 15. But it's Andrew Gubb in the Today FM Van Diemen, car number 9. Martin Carpenter right behind car 3. Then David Roberts in the Duckham's entry in third position. And these three drivers have been the outstanding talent so far in practice. Oh, and Carpenter gets very wide. Gee, he was lucky to save that. He dropped his left rear into the grass and he recovered just in the nick of time. But now he'll lose all the speed down the straight and he'll be swamped by a couple of cars. Larkham goes through. This is Mark's first full season. He's in the yellow car there, in behind Simon Kane, I think, on car number 14. Yes, it is. Look at this. We've got 7, 8, maybe 9 cars all mixing it for the top spots at the moment. We detailed just a moment ago how close and competitive this class of racing is, and we're seeing a great demonstration of it right now. Somebody pulling out. Plenty of oil coming out of the back of that car. 45, I think it was, John Vernon. So Andrew Gubb, that's a good break. David Roberts been issued a little bonus. He's up into second place now with plenty of clear air in front. Simon Kane in third. Bad break for Martin Carpenter, but he just got wide on that previous lap at the bottom of this hill off Motorcraft. That cost him pretty dearly.
In fact, last time through the carousel, Carpenter's car was still very loose indeed. Just look at this traffic charging going on here as they make their way down to the carousel, the right-hander.
Mark Larkham out very wide. The number 21 Formula Ford, the new RF88 model, he's scrapping there at the moment. Carpenter's trying to work his way back through, and he's dealing with Simon Kane. Larkham's from Griffith. It's only his first full season in Formula Ford, although he did 6 races in 87 in the ex-Peter Verheyen 1981 Van Diemen. Previous motorsport experience. But the interesting thing about this car on the right-hand side of screen, chaps, is that half the car, as car 45 pulls to the pits, and that was the one we saw losing oil, John Vernon, half that car was purchased by 70 businesses from Griffith in New South Wales. So they've all contributed to Mark's racing career, and that's a pretty remarkable achievement.
That's one way of doing it.
And the Griffith City Council have also pitched in there as well. The car's only been in the country for 4 weeks. I tell you what, he's working hard at the moment. He's right behind Martin Carpenter. It all happens in Formula Ford. Simon Kane getting carved up a little bit that time by Martin Carpenter, who now makes a break. So there is Andrew Gubb with a very narrow margin now over series leader David Roberts, an old motocrosser, a graphic designer by trade. Went to England a few years back to try his hand at Formula Ford. Like many people, discovered how tough it is in the European racing scene and ran out of money quicker than he ran out of enthusiasm. Came back and trying his hand again at a competitive run, and he's with Formula Ford Race Hire, as is the race leader, Andrew Gubb.
I was most impressed with Roberts at Amaroo Park. He just keeps on coming throughout the race, and I think he's in fact going to wear down Andrew Gubb. He's getting very close to the tail of Gubb's car now, looking also for Carpenter to thread his way back through the pack as they take the kink, halfway down the straight on their way to the right-hander of the carousel.
Roberts within about a couple of car lengths now of Andrew Gubb, and I guess has the opportunity to watch the leader carefully. He's 27, these days living in Brisbane, formerly of Melbourne. Began his car racing career in 82, went to the UK in 84, as I said before. Fourth in last year's Formula Ford Driver to Europe series, and he joined the Formula Ford Race Hire stable in 88. Those details with the compliments of Nissan Know-How. Prior to that, he ran a PRS with quite some success, one of the few drivers to run that car, and he's got the thing really stoked up and sideways at the moment.
I think at the moment he's planning to POQ if he can only get past Andrew Gubb.
Martin Carpenter in the official works car, the RF88, the latest state-of-the-art Formula Ford beast. We're on lap 5 of 20. Quarter race distance.
Well, Carpenter's turned the race into hard work for himself. That little step early on has allowed the leading two to open up quite a gap. And the man in front, Andrew Gubb.
Down in Adelaide, he had a marvellous scrap with David Roberts, who pipped him on the last corner of the last lap to get the win in the second round. So Martin's had to really earn his keep this season.
I can't recall a Formula Ford race for ages where two have sprinted to the front and are just turning it into a two-man show.
They might come back to the field, though, I think, as the race unfolds. We've only gone quarter distance.
Preparation and determination is the key with these fellas. They've been here since very early in the week. Goodness knows how many laps they've turned in. Constant refinement of the car. They're finicky little cars. A lot of things, a lot of variable factors to deal with in the suspension. Look at the times, identical, both 56.9s.
It's only 0.6 of a second off their qualifying times, which is excellent.
Up on a slower car now. See whether or not Roberts is in the box seat to take advantage.
Well, this is where Gubb will be trying to snooker Roberts behind the slower car if he can just pick the right spot to pass on the circuit. But Roberts follows him through easily.
Down to Hungary corner again. It's from this point to the top of Motorcraft Hill that Roberts just hauls in Gubb. Little gap there on the inside, open up as Gubb got the tail out just a fraction. Now it's Roberts who sits right in behind his draft as they work their way out of Castrol and back onto the start finishing straight.
Some Sydney Formula Ford fans may be wondering where Gary Jones is. He qualified 12th for this race. You recall he had a bit of an off last weekend at Amaroo as David Roberts now has a peep down the inside, but the gap vanished pretty rapidly, so he swings back out wide for a revised attack. Gary's still overcoming some little traumas in the car. He reckons it's not quite working right after the biff he had coming onto the straight. So David Roberts had a look that time, probably signalled his intentions, but Andrew was very quickly on to what he was up to. And if anything, I think has got a little bit more of a gap than he had on the previous lap. So David now has to go back to the drawing board.
Well, he's tried everything that he knows so far. I think Roberts is particularly good, as Mike said, through this top part of the circuit at Motorcraft Hill.
David's car's just seems to be just a little bit taily when he turns it into a couple of the corners, just drifting around a little bit. That may or may not hurt these tyres. They all run identical rubber, Avons. They seem to wear pretty well. They do plenty of laps on them during the week. Certainly not affecting their times at the moment. They're still recording identical times.
Through the carousel one more time, again coming up on some slower traffic. Roberts continuing to search for a way around. Still hasn't got quite back onto the tail of Gubb again, although he's not far off it. But these two certainly have opened up a break now.
They've opened up a break on Carpenter, but there's still a pretty mean battle raging for fourth and beyond. There's 6 or 7 cars mixed up in all that. Interesting to see what sort of a lap time Martin Carpenter churns out in his pursuit of these fellas and whether or not he's making any ground, but you really can't afford to throw that much. Good accurate driving here from Andrew Gubb. You can see him using every last centimetre available. And David virtually making a shadow of the leader at the moment. You'll see precisely the gaps between all the cars at the moment. Martin Carpenter with a very, very big gap to make up. And Larkham has now got through in the yellow car. That's a good drive. Then he's being chased at the moment by Robert Bennett.
Simon Kane, who was up running third early, is drifting back into the clutches of the pack.
Well, that's all happened in the last 2.41 kilometres. They were really close on the previous lap. Larkham just gets a little taily coming out of the turn. Radically different cars in terms of their build and technology. Robert Bennett in his self-built car.
Still looking for that sponsor.
Running second overall in the championship too, Bennett. He's had some good performances. He finished second at Winton, fourth at Adelaide. The town of Griffith getting due recognition on the side of Larkham's car for their input to his racing endeavours.
This fellow in the blue car, Robert Bennett, 25 years of age. He's the fellow we mentioned a couple of telecasts back who works for Larry Perkins. Isn't he doing a good job? Let's look at our Castrol scoreboard. Andrew Gubb leads from David Roberts. Martin Carpenter charging in third. Then Mark Larkham and Robert Bennett rounding out the top five. We're back with more of the Formula Fords in just a tick.
Well, this is as close as you're going to get. This is the Formula Ford Driver to Europe Series, round 3 at Lakeside, and up front we've got Andrew Gubb and David Roberts still going hammer and tong, as they've been doing now for more than a dozen laps.
Tremendous stuff, this. I reckon David's really got him worried now because Andrew's driving in his mirrors all the time. Nail-biting stuff on the previous lap. And if history tells us anything, we're looking at a couple of future champions here. Guys like Larry Perkins, John Smith, Stephen Brook have all come out of this close class of racing.
Roberts keeping the pressure firmly on Andrew Gubb. And slower car signals them to the outside as they make the dash down to Hungry Corner. And just watch how much room Roberts makes up from here to the top of Motorcraft Hill.
Despite really intensive pressure, we haven't really seen either one of them make a monster mistake, and that'll probably determine this race. Whoever comes undone with just a little slip up, and it's pretty easy to do when you think it's a 20-lap race. Tricky circuit, certainly not the easiest one to fang around.
No, well, Roberts tries real hard to force Gubb into a mistake as they go up over Motorcraft Hill. Each time he just nudges the nose of his car up there on the inside, and each time Gubb moves to close the gap on him. There's going to be a mistake, that's where it'll be, I think.
Andrew's car very sideways again just as he turned into the first part of the double right-hander at the end at Volvo. That's allowed Roberts to get right under the gearbox of the lead car, and the carrot in this series, as the name suggests, is a trip to Europe, a ticket to Europe. And with the compliments of Motorcraft and Ford, who've been particularly supportive of this class over all the years, and that it could give somebody like David Roberts his second wind over there, just what he needs to get his career fired up. Now it seems to be David's car that's sticking to the road just a little bit better, and it's Andrew Gubb's car sliding around just a tad more, but it's hard to say.
I think Roberts is almost on... well, and then too much of that. That's, I would think at this stage, got the dander up.
Lap 15 of 20.
Andrew covering all the bases that time. As Neil said earlier, most of the concentration being in the mirrors at the moment. That will probably play into the hands of Roberts.
Andrew's really fighting for points at the moment. He's back in 7th, and he needs to be able to get a win. There's 20 points up for grabs if he can do it. He's 24 years of age, out of Sydney, driving, of course, the Van Diemen. He topped his class in the Winfield Drivers School back in '83. Introduced the Formula Ford in '84, now with the race hire crew. And he's performed very well in the opening round of the Coke Series at Amaroo Park, and went very well again last weekend. Andrew Gubb, 7th in the Motorcraft Formula Ford Driver to Europe Series at the moment, and leading this third round by the fairest of margins. And praying for the last lap board to come out, no doubt, and hoping like heck that the track of his Formula Ford gets wider with every lap and his elbows can be put out wide enough to keep his teammate at bay.
4 laps remaining in this race, just under. And there's still a lot of action left in it, particularly between this pair. Back in the pack, Carpenter, Larkham and the rest are still fighting out for the minors, but this is where the major interest is, and it's been that way right from the start, virtually. Gubb seems to have secured just a fraction of a break on him now, although again through this part of the course Roberts attempts to close up under the hill there, but you see before he was getting the nose up on the inside of Gubb there as they went over the hill, so Gubb's in fact got about a length and a half on him, and that's a reasonable gap in this class of racing, and particularly the way things have been going up to date.
Both the boys having a pretty long, hard look in their mirrors. David's got nothing to worry about. The gap back to Martin Carpenter is a country mile. 3 laps, a little less than 3 to go now.
And unless Gubb makes a mistake, it could take Roberts a lap and a half or 2 laps to get back onto the tailpipe of the car in the lead. It doesn't leave him much time to do anything before the checkered flag falls.
Everybody wants to win in motor racing, and it no doubt wouldn't have occurred to David because all he's thinking about at the moment is doing as well as he can, but a second's not going to hurt him in the series too much. 7-point advantage over Robert Bennett, who's still battling for 4th or 5th. All the leading touring car teams busy watching the young talent.
So notice Peter Brock up there earlier, probably following the progress of Andrew Gubb and David Roberts. Laps winding down. 2 laps still to go in this round of the Motorcraft Formula 4 Driver to Europe Series. There's the gap. 1st and 2nd have already gone through. Then Carpenter, he's still holding down the 3rd before. He's got mixed up in this scrap.
Look at Robert Bennett attacking Larkham at the moment, and right behind in car number 8 is Mike Mortimer. He's in one of the new Van Diemen's. This is a great scrap, this one. This was all happening before the break that we last took. Robert Bennett, I briefly mentioned, works for Larry Perkins and gets a lot of engineering assistance from Larry's outfit down in Narrabeen in Melbourne. But he built this car himself. This is the number 7 car that I'm talking about. A very capable engineer and a very capable driver. Isn't he doing a great job at the moment? And the car ably supported by the folks at Griffith, just having made a little break now, and Mike Mortimer maybe with an opportunity to make an attack on Bennett. Last lap. Andrew Gubb driving defensively. No, he's actually acknowledged the checkered flag, and it has come out. So Andrew Gubb the winner. David Roberts in 2nd. Martin Carpenter should be a safe 3rd, or has he vanished?
I think he's vanished.
Yeah, he's vanished. So Larkham in 3rd, then Robert Bennett, and then Mike Mortimer. What a carve up in the 3rd round of the Motorcraft Formula 4 Driver to Europe Series. And David Roberts maintains his points advantage, and Andrew Gubb gets a nice boost along with an extra 20 on top of his tally of 10, lifts him up to 30 points. Very clever of me.
There's some great action at the front of the field. Andrew Gubb in great form today at Lakeside International Raceway. Take nothing away, though, from David Roberts. Let's recap them for you on the Castrol scoreboard. Race winner was Andrew Gubb. 2nd to David Roberts. 3rd, Mark Larkham. 4th spot, Robert Bennett. And 5th, Mike Mortimer.
To define in 3 words the meaning of loyal, and they'll answer Dick Johnson fan. The 43-year-old Brizzy boy can do no wrong in the eyes of most banana Republicans, though up until this year, victory speeches were not a regular part of his repartee. The arrival of Group A racing in '85 saw Johnson aboard a Kermit-coloured Mustang. He campaigned the car for 2 seasons, but it was rarely a match for the proven BMW 635 or a silver-frosted taxi from the streets of Stockholm. Despite perhaps the longest losing streak by an Aussie touring car headliner, Johnson invariably saves something special for his supporters at Lakeside.
I've always enjoyed driving around here, mainly because you've got your hometown crowd and things like that, but it's one circuit that you can really get yourself really hyped up and sort of have a good go, and I hope it never changes.
Last year, the Dickey drought was all but broken at Lakeside, and he charged through the field to take the lead in the Queensland round of the Australian Championship. Sadly, the car couldn't go the distance, and to complicate matters even more, scrutineers pinged the team for turbo irregularities. Dick Johnson supporters have certainly enjoyed a season of bicentennial memories this year as the Queenslander threatens to turn the Shell Ultra Series into a one-man show. He's already trumped the opposition 5-0 with his two-car team, the only chink in the armour being an Amaroo ambush last weekend by fellow Queenslander Tony Longhurst.
Nobody's invincible, and least of all me. We all make mistakes. We're only made out of all the same stuff. But that particular circuit brings all the cars closer together, and that's just one of the things you're going to have. When you're on the top, there's only one way of going, and that's down.
Few racetracks can boast the picturesque setting of Lakeside, which is situated 30 kilometres north of Brisbane. While many of the teams arrived as early as Tuesday to prepare for today's race, on-track time until yesterday was minimal, a point which hasn't gone down well with some people chasing development laps and plenty of them.
We travel a long way from Melbourne to get up here, and we're here on a Tuesday morning. We've had a grand total of 4 hours on the track. And I just don't think with the investment that we have in these cars that we're getting enough time to develop them. The organizers know they've had the meeting scheduled for over a year, and yet always last-minute preparations that preclude us from getting on the track to do our business, and that's develop the car.
Yesterday's pole shootout provided spectators with some gutsy performances from two of the sport's young lions, namely Tony Longhurst and Glenn Sedans. Nissan's new GTSR Turbo two-door has unlimited potential, but the Peter Jackson team is still chasing a test program 6 months behind their Ford rivals. Sedans, meanwhile, dipped into the Leyland brothers' bag of off-roading tricks to come up with a sizzling 55.03 lap to give himself third-row action today.
On race setup all this week, we've been as fast as Diggy Johnson. Once you put qualifying tyres on, they don't react as well as they do on the Sierra on our car. We've got a few more horsepower coming, which is just in engine development and spending a lot of time on the dyno. And I think by Amaroo, hopefully Oran Park, will be knocking on the door anyway.
Splitting row 3 with Gun-Ho Glenn will be the normally exasperated Larry Perkins in the first of the Commodores. The General's new homologation package seemingly taking longer than the Brizzy Fitzgerald of Stedford. Tony Longhurst was definitely yesterday's action attraction in the Freeport Sierra. Lit up the tyres early in the day to post a 54.82 lap before getting the Cosworth out of shape on the downhill run at Motorcraft and almost collecting the guardrail.
There's a couple of points in the circuit where you'd like to back off, and it's quite spooky. You know, a couple of times going under the bridge today, I thought that I was going to clean up the fence, but if you want the time, that's what you've got to do.
Tasmanian John Bow shares row 3 with Longhurst, while the front line is again another Sierra split. Dick Johnson nailing pole with a staggering 54.07 lap, and alongside the vastly underrated Andrew Madecki aboard the Oxo Supercube machine. Madecki charged around the track in 54.73 seconds and is confident he can pace it out with Johnson today in race trim.
We're going to give it our very best shot. I think we're closer than we ever have been to Dick, and it's a race that's going to require a lot of physical fitness and the car that's going to finish. So I'm fit enough, and I think the car's fit enough, so yeah, we're going to really give it our best.
Johnson leads the Shell Championship points table, 80 to Colin Bond, 66. Bow is third on 62, with Brock and Richards next on 28, and then Longhurst with 25. As regular motorsport viewers of 7 would be aware, the Parkroyal collection of fine hotels, including the magnificent Brisbane Parkroyal, are backing the pole winners competition. First prize is a holiday for 2 at the new Parkroyal International Resort at Cairns, plus the NEC Grand Slam, a portable telephone, the NEC portable computer, and NEC video camera. Total value of our Car Star competition, $20,000. After yesterday's qualifying, Johnson still holds a handy break over Bond, Bow and Longhurst. Today we also launch our 7 Motorsport Viewers competition. If you'd like to win this In Excess Suzuki GTI production racer, then all you have to do is answer 2 simple questions. How many members of In Excess are brothers? And how many times has Peter Brock won the Bathurst Classic? Mail your entries without delay to In Excess Motorsport competition, Post Office Box 846, Crow's Nest, New South Wales 2065. The first 10 correct entries will go into a barrel draw on grand final day of the Australian Touring Car Championship at Oran Park, and this nifty Atico Suzuki GTI could be yours. Just one more reason for watching Motorsport on the Australian Television Network.
Don't look now, but somebody's tied him down, Sport. Welcome back to Lakeside as we get set for Sport Sedan action here. The Streets Queensland Sport Sedan Series, and this is a field of just plain brute power. Let's check the grid. Gary Scott is on pole position in the Jaguar XJS. Keith Carling shares the front row of the grid. John English, local hero, in third spot, followed by John White, qualified fourth fastest in the Chevy Monza. Then Charlie Sensi in the Mazda RX-7. Tony Scott in the Mazda RX-3, still going strong. David Pullen in seventh spot, driving a Commodore. Then Kevin Heffernan, also in a Commodore. Bob Thomas in a Mazda RX-3, and rounding out the top 10, Rita Awadallah in a Commodore.
Not too long away from the start is Gary Scott. Be seeing in action in the Mitsubishi Starion, the Rally Art entry this afternoon in the touring car round. At the moment, though, he's in the Colorbond XJS Jag that'll absolutely snap off the line here. Johnny English in the Kima entry. Looks good out there. One of Queensland's finest. And watch these cars just light up the racetrack as they get ready for the Street Sports Sedan race here this afternoon.
Gary Scott on pole position. Brother Tony back in sixth spot in the RX-3.
And away he goes. Did he what? Carling got away. Very slowly indeed. He's been gathered in by about half a dozen cars as they make their way down to the carousel for the first time. And you'll find that Scott is absolutely blistered away from this pack. English got off to a pretty good start. Carling will have to do it very, very tough from there, though. He's already snookered one here on the inside as they come out of Yokohama. Here they come through the sweeper beneath the bridge. Keith Carling coming up to about fourth at the moment, but Gary Scott finds himself under a little bit of pressure here from John White and the Monza.
The evil-looking car, isn't it, that Chevy Monza?
Then John English is the next one through. Keith Carling following him over the top of Motorcraft. Down the hill now to complete the opening lap this afternoon.
Charlie Sensi going through in car number 6. Fifth position, followed by Tony Scott in the black car, the ex-Nick Whitmay Sports Sedan.
As John English, who finds himself at this stage under threat from Keith Carling and the Toledo Tools Mazda. They're battling for third and fourth at the moment. There goes Carling through, or trying to pull it through on the inside. Wasn't enough room to do it there. Now they come down to Hungry Corner. Oh, look at this. This is a big, brave one down the outside. I tell you, that's probably the pass of the day.
Oh, that's great.
But he keeps himself wide. No, able to tuck it into the top of Motorcraft. I'm sure Peter Mackay would agree. That's probably one of the best passing manoeuvres we've seen today.
Brave stuff there from Carling, who recovered very well, considering he made such a poor start. Missed the jump completely, but now back up to 3. Back up to the third slot and, well, within striking distance of the big cars up front.
You've got to realise that Lakeside is a very narrow and tight and in places quite rough circuit, and with the power and the size of these cars, these fellas do just an unbelievable job to keep them under control and keep them on the bitumen.
There's every incentive to stay there too, Gary. There's not too much in the way of runoff areas around this track.
Not unless you want to end up in the drink. I've been there. It's not pleasant.
John White in the Chevy Monza, still trailing race leader Gary Scott at this stage, and Scott pounding away from the pack.
probably not a lot in the horsepower stakes between these lead two cars, probably around 600 horsepower apiece. V12 Jaguar, V8 Chevy Monza.
Keith Carling in the yellow Mazda, making a pretty good fist of things now, closing on the leaders still.
Yeah, Carling doesn't mind a bit of travelling either. He gets around a bit. We saw him down in Winton a month or so ago, a regular at Amaroo Park Raceway in Sydney, and now all the way up here chasing the sun.
Well, he hasn't got too much chasing left in this race. It's only 8 laps, and it's going to be pretty hard to bridge the gap on these leading cars.
Carling has a new RX-7 on the way, to be powered by a Nissan turbocharged engine, which is great news for those who have good hearing and want to keep it that way. The little Mazda rotaries are not the quietest cars on earth.
Well, a good job, Keith Carling, but there's the split first to second to third. And there's John English back there in fourth, and absolute daylight back to whoever's running in fifth spot. Down to the carousel again. As they swing through the exit now of Yokohama, and so the positions are unchanged.
There's some hard chasing by Carling, but you can see the big Jag spearing through there. He's got away from White now as well. Blood red Chevy Monza, but Gary Scott really is opening a gap for a slower car between himself and White as they go up over Motorcraft Hill. Good spot to increase the break.
The Jaguar, usually raced by Mark Trenoweth, having a bit of a break this year, allowing Gary Scott to step into the driver's seat.
Well, time's run out, I'm afraid, for Carling and for White, and Gary Scott, as you've just mentioned, doing such a great job with the Mark Trenoweth entry so far this year. Is going to notch up another victory here as they come round on their final lap.
A great old tub, this one. It's been around for, I can't even remember exactly, perhaps 12 or 15 years. The car first came out in the hands of John McCormick and has passed through a couple of owners since. And as we can see here today, still quite capable of grabbing a pole position and winning a race or two.
Given it very well indeed, Gary Scott, coming down the hill now for the final time. Gary Scott is in great touch. We'll look forward to seeing him in the touring car race coming up a little later on, but coming down to go across the line. And in fact, it will be Gary Scott. Scott goes across the stripe. He'll pick up the win. Monza of John White will pick up second spot, and Keith Carling will take third.
They finished up pretty well spread out there towards the end as we check them again on the scoreboard. Scott, White and Carling, the top 3 place getters. John English, a bit disappointing, coming in fourth spot, and Charlie Sensi filling up the top 5 on the Castrol scoreboard in the Streets Queensland Sports Sedan race here at Lakeside this afternoon.
Our regular video visit around the world of motorsport takes us to some interesting places, but few motorsporting venues are like this one. Monaco, the most unlikely location for a motor race, but they've been running one there since 1929. For this, the third round of the World Championship, McLaren's new boy Ayrton Senna took pole position and promptly sprinted away from the line to commence what should have been a total carve-up. Gerhard Berger slipped the Ferrari into second, and right behind him, the master, Alain Prost, was prying and trying to find impossible passing room on the tight layout. The entire weekend was a disaster for Lotus. Nakajima didn't qualify, and Piquet was forced to pit early in the race, blowing any chance of points. As predicted, the Judd Williams was quick in the hands of Nigel Mansell, but like Piquet, his Monaco Grand Prix became a disaster. Michele Alboreto was busy probing for a way to pass Nigel, and in his haste, he did this. Nigel wasn't too impressed. The outstanding find of the year also had problems. Alessandro Nannini ground to a halt in the Benetton, but it was nowhere near as wild as the ride Philippe Alliot copped after coming into contact with Riccardo Patrese. Beyond that, business was quiet until Senna T-boned the wall before entering the tunnel on lap 67 of 78. So peeved was the Brazilian, he didn't bother to return to tell Ron Dennis what happened. He walked straight back to the pad on the waterfront and locked himself away. This gave Prost the race on a platter. Berger managed to find second and teammate Alboreto was third. Prost is now 10 points clear in the World Championship. In the third round of the European Touring Car title at Estoril, Portugal, touring car fans saw another example of Ford domination. Armin Hahne led the field away in his Wolf Sierra from Steve Soper and Klaus Ludwig in their Texaco Eggenberger Fords. Keen to make good after their poor showing in England, the Texaco team were right back on the pace with a reliable car. The four drivers? The same four we saw in Australia, with Pierre Dieudonné doing the race cam routine. Back in the pack, the M3s were suffering from a lack of grunt and grip in some cases, enabling the Texaco team to run the race as they wished. Steve Soper cruised through the 115-lapper without any dramas and made the flag with a 22-second margin over Roberto Ravaglia in the BMW. Roberto now leads the title with 93 points and Soper has moved to third on 80. Round 5 of the World Rally Championship gave us some rallying at its best. The Tour of Corsica was a tight battle between Toyota, Lancia, Ford and BMW. The 833-mile event included 289 miles of special stage driving that thrilled the crowds. But when will they learn in Europe that this is unbelievably dangerous? The hotshots included Yves Loubet in the Lancia Integral, Bruno Sabi also driving for the Martini team, and the number 8 Sierra driven by Didier Auriol. Some of the action on the tar was amazing. This is Patrick Bernardini in the 325 BMW, who struggled to match the aces, but certainly put on a great show. Incredible pressure was applied by Lancia and the Bastos BMW teams, but for the first time in 18 months of World Championship rallying, Ford finally made the grade. Auriol won by over 3 minutes and has lifted Ford into second for the Manufacturers' Championship. On other gasoline gossip, the Dick Johnson-Colin Bond turbo wastegate issue was sorted out during the week in Melbourne by CAMS. They ruled in favour of the Queenslander, and now all the Ford runners will apparently run the system. Holden fans wondering about the new Group A race car will have to tread water for a little longer. Production delays are making the job of building 500 near impossible, and rumours currently suggest July or August for final ratification. And finally, Superbike fans should get set for the race of all time at Oran Park when the World Championship comes to Sydney later this year. If you love howling four-strokes, racing closely, this one's for you.
Oran Park this year is celebrating 25 years of motorcycle racing. We missed out on the Formula 500cc motorcycle racing, which will be held at Phillip Island this year. So we're pleased that we do now hold the right to hold the first World Championship event in Oran Park.
So that's it for motorsport around the world. But before the end curtain comes down, spare a thought for poor old Derek Van Zelm. Last week at Amaru, he crashed his Capri in the morning race. His Marshall's battery sports sedan made quite a mess, and after this, I reckon he probably hollered for the Marshall.
Welcome back to Lakeside International Raceway before a huge crowd here this afternoon. We're preparing for the Berklee Exhaust Formula V event. Let's take a look at the grid. From pole position, car number 1, Les Usher in the Manta. From 2, Bernie Hanley in our Toledo Tools car. From 3, 60, Nigel Bradley. From 4, Ian Simpson in 76. From 5, Bernie Cashin. Out of 6 is Rod Boyle in the Manta. From 7, Steve Gray. From position number 8, Vincent Henderson. Out of 9 is Wayne Langford. Rounding out the top 10, Nick Dawn in a Spectre. We're only a few seconds away from the start. Bernie Hanley carrying our Toledo Tools race cam. They're off and racing and getting away very quickly indeed. Was Usher off the inside. Hanley goes down on the inside of him as they approach the king for the first time, heading in the direction of the carousel. Then 60, it's Nigel Bradley who pulls out of the draft, comes down on the right-hand side of the circuit looking for the inside run at the right-hander. And they've all got off the starting line. It could be Bernie Hanley to take over the lead in the carousel for the first time.
Ian Simpson in car number 76 has made quite a good start in 4th position. Jumped away in 3rd, but just lost that that spot as he turned through the right-hander. So Hanley leads, then Usher. And they tell me that in a Formula V, all the way around here, you're in top gear, just hang it out.
It certainly looks spectacular coming beneath the bridge there on their way down to the left-hander at Hungry Corner, and here they come. Bashful Bernie Hanley going from the inside and just covering his tracks nicely. Les Usher in here trying to push hard over the top of Motorcraft Hill and headed down to the right-hander at Castrol, and it's still Bernie Hanley from Sydney doing it in the Toledo Tools entry. Usher is very close and good challenge as they come across the line for the completion of the first lap, and 5 still to run.
Usher making a big move here on Henley now. He was the man that was on pole position and goes by. He's got the line through this corner. Bernie's losing out to look like car 60 as well, slipping by him as they went down the long straight here through the kink and down to the corner. Carousel. In fact, Bernie's been shuffled back to 4th.
Yeah, Nigel Bradley's come up now to 2nd place. Simpson to 3rd. He's a former Australian champion. So the Queenslanders doing very nicely at the moment. This is the first round of the Berklee Exhaust Queensland Formula V Series. Now Simpson sneaks through into 2nd place.
Ian Simpson is the Formula V lap record holder here too.
Coming through Hungry Corner, Hanley back there in 3rd spot at the moment. Still Les Usher, the race leader. Bradley runs in 2nd over the top of Motorcraft and down towards Castrol. Hanley back 1 spot behind them.
Bernie Cashin, car 40, just in behind that group, so he's running about 5th at the present time, followed by Rod Boyle, then Steve Gray in that bunch as well.
Great shots here from race cam as Bernie swings down on the outside here. They go 3 wide into the kink. Tightest corner on the circuit and the fastest, and Bernie Hanley gets through and takes back the lead. But look at the squabble going on for 2nd and 3rd behind him.
Nigel Bradley's dropped back to 4th now in all that, so it's Hanley. Usher in 2nd place, but has a very tight line coming out of the right-hander. There's Simpson 76, Bradley behind. Wheel-to-wheel stuff.
Had to talk to Bernie Henley after qualifying here yesterday. He said, I've got this joint sussed out. He said, coming off Motorcraft Hill and on the entrance of the main straight, that's where you make your move, and that's where he got back and regained the lead. But now, of course, he's got these 2 guys sitting right on his exhaust, and they're going to make the big move on him.
He also found out in yesterday's preliminary race the worst thing he can do here is lead halfway through the last lap because he ended up 3rd.
Yes, to the top of Motorcraft Hill. Hasn't Bernie's career blossomed since we decided to take him on the road with us?
What is amazing are the differences in these chassis. Of course, Formula V, the cars, engine, suspension, gearbox, transmission, wheels, and things are all standard. But there are 3 different chassis, but it doesn't seem to make any performance difference. Here comes Nigel Bradley in 60. Usher up on the outside of Hanley. Ian Simpson wants to sneak through on the inside. Toss the coin. Let's see who comes out on top in this one.
He just finds a little more at the carousel. So Hanley will still lead them.
When he told me that he had to put the high diff in and drives around here in high gear, I just couldn't believe it.
There's a nice old battle royal going on behind him. He's got them stacked up on the mill. So through the sweeper, Bernie Hanley, the Toledo Tools entry. He drops down at the left-hander at Hungry Corner. Coming in for the big challenge, though, Les Usher, who sat on pole for this race. Bradley's just a spot or 2 back behind him. 76, of course, Ian Simpson up to 3rd, as we mentioned before. Then Bradley in 4th. Nice tight group as they exit Motorcraft Hill to run down to the right-hander at Castrol. We'll see whether or not they can pull out of the draft and challenge Hanley halfway down the straight. First one to make the move is Usher. Usher's pulled in here by Ian Simpson, and then Bradley on the outside. Once again, 3 wide into the left-hander at the king. That's how close it is. There wasn't much in that. He's gone from the lead to 4th.
Bradley's the man that's really keen, but he got squeezed out there going into the carousel. The man in car 60 running 3rd. He's really keen to go faster.
Les Usher barely caught that one too. The back of his car was really sliding around as he turned in.
Now we take race cam. Coming down through the sweeper, beneath the bridge. Downhill a run to the left-hander at Hungry Corner.
Lens has been cracked.
Well, the action's been pretty tight up front. Send Stan Coffey a bill for a new lens cap here for a race cap.
Maybe Bernie smiled.
Over the top of Motorcraft, and the front-running trio are getting away from Bernie Hanley at this stage. Ian Simpson, who's come from 4th to lead this race. They're coming up on a slower vehicle at the moment.
Bernie's got a lot of work to do now. It's you can't afford to lose contact with the leaders, especially coming off Motorcraft Hill. Once they get away from you, it's very hard to make up the lost ground.
Nigel Bradley going through, taking over the lead. That was a very good move on Bradley's part. Played that slow car very, very well indeed. Look what's going on behind though. Usher coming back. Simpson now goes back to 3rd. Hanley is still 4th. They're working their way on the last half lap of this race, heading down to Hungry Corner yet again.
Bernie Cashin, car 40, still hanging in behind them, but the top 3 look to have it between them at this stage. But in Formula B racing, you never... Oh, Bernie getting very out of shape there.
Bernie's just worked out it's a 6th lapper, and there's about quarter of a lap left.
Life in Formula Bs is all about slipstreaming and aerodynamics, and we'll see which one used the calculator the best way this time. Bradley leads as they come out of the last turn. Usher in 2nd. I reckon he might have got this one.
Sprint down for the line, but it will in fact be 60. Bradley coming down here on the outside. Simpson makes a run, but Bradley gets it. Simpson probably in for 2nd. Or Usher, I should say, Simpson and Hanley. Could split them across the line.
I'll tell you what, that was much closer than it looked.
Yes.
Usher got very close to him. It was like half a Formula V nose, which is not much.
Not much at all to the Clifford's Bernie. Nigel Bradley, though. Very strong performance. And he really played that lap car with a lap to go so well, positioned himself, was able to split Usher and Simpson. Let's recap them for you on the Castrol scoreboard. Nigel Bradley is our race winner. Les Usher takes 2nd. Ian Simpson 3rd. Bernie Hanley takes 4th. And Bernie Cashin was 5th. We hope you enjoyed that recap of the World Superbike Championship exclusive to 7 Sport. Don't forget, of course, the Australian round of the World Superbike Championship will be held at Oran Park near Sydney on September the 25th, and you'll be able to see that across the 7 network. Touring cars on the circuit at Lakeside International Raceway, warming up prior to the 6th round of the National Series, sponsored, of course, by Shell Ultra High. And a tremendous turnout of spectators here today. They've all come along to barrack for one Queenslander by the name of Dick Johnson. And he certainly rewarded them yesterday by locking up pole position with a 54.07. Let's take a look the way they line up today. Dick Johnson, pole position yet again in the Shell Ultra High Sierra. From 2 is car 6, Andrew Madecki in the Oxo Supercube Sierra. From 3, 18, Johnny Bow in the 2nd of the Shell Sierras. From 4, car number 3, Tony Longhurst in the Freeport Motorsport Sierra. From 5 is car 30, Glenn Seaton in the Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline. Starting out at position 6, car 11, Larry Perkins, the first of the Holden Commodores. From 7, car number 5, Peter Brock in the Mobil 1 Racing Team BMW. From 8, car number 1, Jim Richards, the second of the Mobil BMWs. From 9, car 4, Colin Bond, the Caltex Racing Ford Sierra. Rounding out the top 10, 16, Gary Scott, and the Rally Art Australia Starion with a 55.90. There's just a sample of the huge turnout of spectators here at Lakeside International Raceway. Near Petrie, just outside of Queensland, 30 kilometres away from the downtown area. And Dick Johnson receiving a tremendous ovation from the spectators around the circuit on the warm-up lap. Can he do it again today? Dickie Johnson, there he is, man of the moment. 43 years of age, a Brizzy boy. First in the 81, 82 and 84 Australian Touring Car title. The accident-shortened James Hardy 1000 of 81, 9 times Queensland Touring Car champion, and currently numero uno in the Shell Ultra High Series. And doing it today for Queensland.
And the fastest man in this morning's warm-up by 2/100ths of a second from Andrew Madecki. Tony Longhurst was 3rd quickest. In fact, they were all very closely matched with their race setups, unlike yesterday's qualifying. 5 drivers, Johnson, Madecki, Longhurst, Bow and Seaton, separated by less than 3/10ths of a second. That'll give you some indication of what's to come for the next 60 laps. And then the next group of 5 drivers, Moffat, Richards, Perkins, Bond, Brock, were all within an absolute split second of each other.
Just about set for the start. Round 6 of the Shell Ultra High Touring Car Nationals from Lakeside Raceway. Johnson moves before the line. They're racing racing. Johnson away smartly, absolutely jumped out of there. Whether or not he'll get pinged for jumping the start, we'll wait and see. John Bow up immediately on the outside of Medecky, and they're looking for a shell 1-2 as they held into the carousel for the first time.
Moffat's made a shocking start again in the ANZ Ford Sierra.
You could bank on that.
Dick Johnson, I think, was... well, it was a fairly...
and there's one round. That's Andrew Bagnall, number 8. Gulliver's Travels, you betcha. He's off on the edge of the track, and he'll come out running last at the moment behind Lyndon Riefmuller in the 190 Mercedes.
I was going to say it was an enthusiastic start by Dick. I'll leave it at that. We'll have to see that one later on. But Johnson leads comfortably at the moment. Medecky in second. John Bow forcing his way up to third. Then Tony Longhurst. Glenn Seaton appears to have got a pretty good jump as well in the Nissan. Larry Perkins has come away well. The Nissan defending from both the mobile BMWs, and then Colin Bond followed by Gary Scott. And the cheers from the fans, the bumper crowd here at Lakeside, almost deafening the noise of the cars.
Absolutely going berserk, and they'll tear the joint apart if they do penalise Dick Johnson, but I think he certainly cribbed a half a car length at the start. But he's got more than a half a car length lead now over Andrew Medecky, then John Bow. Look at Longhurst creeping up on the inside, trying to get under Bow as they go into the carousel.
I think this is where the race is going to be. Second, third, fourth and fifth for the moment. As they come out of there, Medecky, John Bow very anxious to go on with it. Tony Longhurst sits just in behind them. Not a bad start from Tony Longhurst.
Larry Perkins just in behind Longhurst, leading the Commodores.
There's Andrew Medecky, the Oxo Supercube Sierra. Johnny Bow, Dick Johnson's second car, the 18 car, and rounding him up very, very quickly indeed is Tony Longhurst in the Freeport Motorsport Sierra, and lightning Larry Perkins in for the ride behind them. Off Motorcraft Hill and down to Castrol Corner. There's Medecky. Some tyres, noise. Ooh. And Dick Johnson, the news comes through, has been penalised 1 minute for jumping the start. That is going to be a hard penalty to fall back in this field this afternoon.
On the last corner, Andrew Medecky seemed to have a big bucket full of understeer, and he's gone off.
There's Andrew
with John Bow. He lost a lot of ground at the top of the straight, ran wide. John Bow was able to get through him, passed him midway down the straight, and then the two have tangled now through the carousel. That was pretty hairy stuff.
It certainly was. Here they come out of Yokohama. That should put John Bow in front. Tony Longhurst running in second, and Larry Perkins sitting now right on the tail of Longhurst as they drop down into Hungary Corner. Most of the spectators here unaware that Dick Johnson has incurred a 1 minute penalty. Here's our NEC replay. That little bump between John Bow and Andrew Medecky. Caught Medecky just as he was turning into the right-hander. And once it got loose, there was no way of stopping it.
Great effort by Medecky to hold the car and get it back on the track, though.
Look at Larry Perkins. He's the charger in the field at the moment. The Castrol Commodore seems to be working pretty well on this circuit. He was very quick yesterday in qualifying. He missed the first session when he had an oil pressure problem with the car and only did one lap. And he came out in the second session and knocked out a blinder of a time on the car that probably isn't that well suited to the circuit, but he's proving otherwise at the moment.
Larry's quick laps will be the opening laps, so I would expect that he'll feel the weight of the car and the tyres deteriorating probably after about 10 or 15 laps around here.
The car sounds a little different this weekend. They're running a split exhaust system on it. It sounds like a sprint car as it rushes by. It's an unfamiliar Commodore sound, that's for sure. But the car is working as well as we've ever seen it work at the moment. He's about 1.5 car lengths behind Tony Longhurst at the moment. So Dick Johnson disappears into the distance carrying a 1 minute penalty. John Bow in second place, having displaced Andrew Medecky when the two tangled a couple of laps back. Then Longhurst, then we've got Larry Perkins, Glenn Seaton, followed by Peter Brock, then Colin Bond, then Jim Richards being chased pretty closely by Gary Scott, and Alan Moffat recovering some ground and buying into the top 10 battle.
And Andrew Medecky, after that spin, is back in 14th place, so it really has cost him very dearly. There's Glenn Seaton, car number 30, pursued by Peter Brock.
Oh,
out very
how easy
wide.
was that? And so does Colin Bond. So I think you'll find that he's got problems, major ones, in the Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline. Slowing, heading on the way back to the pits. That's bad luck indeed for Glenn Seaton. He just looked so good in qualifying yesterday, but his race is over early. Dick Johnson, of course, carries a race cam today at Lakeside International Raceway. Let's tour the circuit with Dick. Look to the crowd off on the left as he comes down to the left-hander, and he is absolutely storming away from the field. I'd say at this stage he is well aware of the fact he's picked up a minute penalty and will be driving accordingly. Let's just hope he doesn't overstress the Sierra. Let's go back to the start of the race to see just how, in fact, that jump off the line. Here we are before the start. Dick moves, still moving, and then they go. So Dick has gone over the line. I don't think there's too much doubt about that.
Yeah, it may not be just a Dick problem, though. Sometimes you can get some clutch grab.
How painful it is. Dick Johnson over the top of Motorcraft. Heads down the other side of the hill at the moment towards Castrol Corner. Minute penalty for jumping the start. And the Shell Sierra is just storming away because he's got to pick up 60 seconds on this field. I don't think he'll do it over the bus that's running second, John Bowe.
Well, I don't know about that. I think it's quite within the realms of possibility that as this race unfolds, if Johnson can continue to dictate the tempo up front, and Bowe could hold the rest of the field back, I think Johnson can probably win by a minute, especially with Andrew Madecki shuffled right back through the pack now and really out of business. I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility.
Well, it would mean, working out all the calculations, I think it would mean John Bowe easing off for him. And
he'd have to ease off, yeah, and hold up the rest of the field.
Yes. Gee, they're strong calculations. The rest of the field have probably lynched John Bowe.
I bet your team manager, Neil Lowe's working on it, though, right now.
I'd say so. They're looking pretty good, though. They've got a car out in front, not necessarily legally leading the race, and they've certainly got the backup car, John Bowe.
Peter Brock on screen in 05, the first of the mobile team Commodores. And they really have had a hard job this season, and they're doing it, as Neil Crompton can testify, they've done pretty well to hang tough and hang in the rounds of the Touring Car Championship so far.
Alan Moffat seems to be the mover in this group of cars, being led by Peter Brock at the moment. Alan, you'll recall, made a pretty dreadful sort of a start. I think he's already got past Gary Scott, and Colin Bond got by Jim Richards. So I think it's Brock, Bond, then Jim, then Alan, and then Gary Scott behind in the Rally Art Mitsubishi Starion.
There's Alan Moffat, car number 9, the ANZ Banking Sierra. As Neil made a mention earlier, got off to an absolute awful start, Alan Moffat, but he's coming back through the field, getting stronger with each race. Said he would drive himself into form.
Still got a few developmental problems with the car. It's just taking an awful long time to get it sorted out and get it really set up in race trim as he'd like it to be. But he's content with the progress, slow and steady progress. As he said, for the amount of money, the investment involved in this car, he doesn't want to go out and do something silly and blow the thing up. He'd rather just take it steady and be in there mixing it with them towards the end of the season. Sevens race cam in the ANZ Alan Moffat Sierra. And you can see just what a challenging layout the Lakeside circuit is. Glenn Seaton, as we saw earlier, was in trouble. Let's get down to Peter McKay in the pits if we can find out from the Nissan team what the problem is.
Well, Glenn Seaton has retired the Skylines from behind the pits, and Fred Gibson's gone back to have a chat with him. But Paul Berrington, manager of Nissan Motorsport, you know what happened? Oh, Peter, we feel there's an overheating problem with the engine. We put a fresh engine in the car yesterday afternoon simply because we wanted to try the new engine today, and we feel we've got a problem with the water cooling of the engine. Well, these sorts of things do happen with a new motor car, but you're confident you might be able to get the thing right to Sandown. Well, we're very confident, even though we've had 2 mishaps in a row now. We're going through an enormously accelerated learning curve, and it's a totally new car, and we've got to find out all the idiosyncrasies of it. I'm confident about Sandown. We've now put our second engine in the car, so we're really becoming quite advanced with it. It is strange that the car has failed in the race, but through qualifying and practice, no problems at all. Peter, we've had 2 extremely long practice sessions with the car, and it's very frustrating to be in this position now. Okay, down but not out. Mike.
Certainly, we wait to see whether or not the same applies to Dick Johnson, who has a little look over his shoulder there past the pits, taking a signal. We've got race cam, of course, with Dick Johnson, and as he swings into the carousel, we might ask him, Dick, how are things running at the moment?
They held it down reasonably long that the clutch, we got a new sort of clutch in, and it picked up on the line, and the car started creeping, and now I'm driving without a clutch virtually.
Gee, that's going to be tough, and try to make up 60 seconds at the same time.
I'll try and have a go at him about that.
Well, you got a lot of people out here watching you today, mate.
Pardon?
You got a lot of people out here from Brisbane watching you today.
Oh, mate, what a great sight. No wonder I got pumped up.
Pumped up?
If you want a bit of adrenaline, mate, all you need is the Queensland crowd.
Well, we'll let you go for a while and make up that 60 seconds. Come back to you later.
Thanks, pal.
So Dick Johnson working pretty hard at the moment without the best clutch, and we'll try and get some gaps and see what sort of a job he's got to do. It'll be a pretty tough equation no matter how you look at it to win by 60 seconds.
Well, he's 6 seconds on John Bauer in second place at the moment.
With my boot firmly placed in my mouth, I tried to explain that he may have had a little bit of clutch drama on the line. It certainly would seem that way. No guy would be keen to just drive away like that and not be aware of the fact that he'd be pinged for 60 seconds.
You'll see the gap here on screen. There goes Dick beneath our camera position. Here comes John Bauer. 3 slower cars in between them, having been lapped already. Bill O'Brien, one of them. That's John Bauer's second spot. So the Shell team 1-2. What a familiar sight that has been in the rounds of the Touring Car Championship round Australia so far this year.
Bauer coming up into traffic. Some of the Commodores coming up behind Bill O'Brien and the everlast Commodore at the moment. Keep in mind he's trying to fend off Tony Longhurst and a horde of other cars that are sitting back behind him. Longhurst or Frank Gardner opting for the hardest tyres that they possibly have. Told me this morning. Dick and John Bauer will probably pace the race for the first 20 laps, but keep an eye on the Freeport Sierra after about the halfway mark.
Actually, Longhurst's done a pretty good job in this early stage of the race to shake off Larry Perkins. As we saw in the opening laps, Perkins' Commodore was all over the back of the Freeport Sierra. Longhurst's managed to get away a little on him now. Maybe this slower traffic has helped, but isn't it incredible? How many laps down? Half a dozen laps down, and already they're lapping the rear-end cars.
Yes, the Commodores that dictated races here at Lakeside only a few years ago, going under in about 5 or 6 laps. There's Longhurst working the inside of Bill O'Brien, takes the second one, moves up behind John Bauer yet again. Keeping in mind only a week ago, Tony Longhurst inflicted Dick Johnson's first defeat. That's with Johnson still running in the race. And of course, he's 30 years of age, comes from the Gold Coast, a local boy, 4th in the 86 and 87 Australian Touring Car Championship, winner of the 85 Castrol 500, winner also of the AMSCAR Series in 86, and currently 6th on 25 points in the National Championship Series. That's that courtesy of Nissan know-how. There's the man in question, Tony Longhurst, number 3.
Tony was really rapid with his performance in the warm-up. He did a 56.15 compared to Andrew's 56.07, Dick's 56.05. So the car was really good in race trim. Slipping about a little bit at the moment, probably more than he'd like, but he certainly knows how to punt along hard, and he's right in the sights of John Bauer. Back at Motorcraft Hill, some dramas on our NEC replay. Gerald Kay getting in a bit of strife in the Jag Parts Commodore, decides to go rally crossing and rejoins the circuit. It looks as though without any drama, but dropped a couple of spots in the process. So Longhurst punting along nicely. I think the stopwatch telling me at the moment that he's really got John in his sights quite nicely.
Yes, noticeable now, closing up on John Bauer, the battle for second and third. Alan Moffat, by the way, is now up to 7th place, having blown the start badly, as we saw earlier. 13 laps completed.
This is where the race is, because Tony Longhurst, or Frank Gardner, team manager, would be well aware of the fact that Dick Johnson has incurred a minute penalty for rolling over the start line before the flag went down. So Tony would know the man in front of him is just the man he has to pass for victory, because the chances of Dick Johnson being able to pick up 60 seconds on the pair of these drivers is somewhat remote. So he'll charge after John Bauer.
He's going to find it hard to get past Bauer, though, I'll tell you.
Yep. But he's the more forceful of the two drivers, make no mistake about that. He'll probably take a few more risks than will John. Let's recap them for you on the Castrol scoreboard. Clever Dick, wasn't so clever getting off the line, but he still leads the race. John Bauer, teammate, is second. Longhurst is third. Larry Perkins is fourth. Colin Bond runs in fifth. Lap 18 of 60. What a race we've got going here at Lakeside. Andrew Madecki, car number 6. You'll recall went into the first turn, sideswiped with John Bow, went out onto the grass and came in running dead last. And now he's made it all the way back up through the field and sits behind Alan Moffat. So Andrew Madecki in 7th spot. Alan Moffat runs in 6th, one of the mobile BMWs, and 5th just ahead of him, and expect Andrew Madecki to be on the tail of Alan Moffat, given a couple of laps. There's Colin Bond just in front of that group, and Moffat makes a charge now on the BMW down on the inside. That's Peter Brock.
Well, Peter's given him plenty of room, which is a sportsman-like thing to do. These two guys have got a great deal of respect for each other, and the BMW has the advantage under brakes. But Peter looked over, realised the Ford had some speed down the straight, but it's not showing that through the corners, and so Alan has to go and do a repeat performance. And Andrew Madecki all the time getting closer to these guys.
This is where the action's going to be for the next few laps. Bond just up ahead of these guys. Then Brock, Moffat, Madecki and Moffat both anxious to go faster. Both having made up tremendous ground after early mishaps. Madecki's teammate also in trouble earlier in the race, Andrew Bagnall, spearing off at the top of the circuit and doesn't seem to have got back to the action.
Tell you what, Andrew's tyre's going to be a bit second-hand if he throws that around. Here's Alan Moffat making the run. He's just got Brock now at the right time and passes Brock. That moves him to 5th. So Moffat to 5th, Colin Bond is 4th, and Madecki still sitting in behind Peter Brock. We'll see what pressure he can put on Peter Brock in the next lap. Gee, they are close. This is great racing. Look at Madecki straight round the outs there, but he gets the inside run for the sweeper. Brock keeps it wide. Brock doing a good job here, hounding them all in the Mobile 1 BMW, the 05 car.
It was fantastic to stand at the end of the Armco railing down that little, well, you can't really call it a straight, it's so twisty. Yesterday afternoon when everybody was going for it on qualifiers and watching all top 10, you know, Australia's best touring car drivers rushing around there on 2 wheels with the cars really leaping about. There's some great stuff.
Just as they whip out from under that Dunlop bridge and take that kink, there's a change in the camber in the road, which doesn't help. But the cars just seem to drift on 2 wheels halfway across the circuit.
Yeah, it was miraculous.
Down to the carousel again. And Andrew Madecki closing on Alan Moffat in the ANZ Banking Sierra, number 9. There's Madecki, 6, the Oxo Supercube car just ahead of them. Bond and the Celtic CXT entry.
21 laps completed out of 60. We've gone just over a third of the race distance.
I don't like Dick's chances of pulling 60 seconds back.
I mean, that's an enormous margin in motor racing. It sounds easy when it just rolls off the tongue. 60 seconds, and if anything, this weekend represents the first time that the opposition Sierras are really on Dick's pace, very close to him. This is the scrap. John Bow, Tony Longhurst. Still not much in it at the moment. Little puff of blue between gear changes in John Bow's car, although it was doing that yesterday as well. I don't think it's any cause for alarm. Both the drivers putting in neat, tidy laps, mindful of the fact that they have to get their tyres to last for 60 laps.
Just confirming again that Dick Johnson jumped the start in this race, and this is the man who presently leads it, John Bow, 33 years of age, from Devonport in Tassie, first in the 84-85 Australian Formula 1 Championship, first in the Australian Sports Car title in 86, second in the James Hardy 1000, as we used to know and love it, and currently third, 62 points in the Australian Touring Car Championship. He is the official race leader. Sought confirmation of that from the CAMS officials. So John Bow is the race leader. Tony Longhurst runs second on the road. And there's an early casualty. And that, of course, is Gary Scott, the Mitsubishi Starion, the Ralliart entry. Bad luck for Gary. In the meantime, Alan Moffat is starting to really get on the pace. He's closed up right on the tail now of Colin Bond. There's Bond just ahead of him in the Celtic CXT entry. Larry Perkins just 1 spot ahead of Colin Bond. They've been pulling Perkins in over the last couple of laps. As one would expect, the tyres going off on the Commodore, carrying a weight penalty, obviously, against these lightweight Sierras.
This is the battle for 3rd, 4th and 5th. Bound Longhurst with a good break on these three. One of the Riethmuller Mercs out. I think it's Lyndon's car, in fact.
It's good to see them here supporting the Australian Touring Car Championship. Their two-car team, Lyndon Riethmuller.
Phil Ward still out there. Yep. Yeah, bad luck, because he's an enthusiast and he's putting money into the sport, and he figures he may as well be out there having a go himself. Obviously he can't run with the likes of these guys, but he enjoys it, and more than makes up the numbers.
And the Mercs have been quicker at every round that they've raced in the last couple of months, particularly at Amaroo Park in the AMSCAR series. Got a real race going here for the minor. See Bond's car just picking up the back wheel as it went through the sweeper there beneath the bridge. He's closed up really on the back now of Larry Perkins, and Moff the Top is giving them quite a ride here today.
Past Drew Price in the 31 Toyota.
This is the best run we've seen from Alan Moffat so far in the championship. A delayed start to the 1988 Shell Series. He's slowly coming to grips with a car that's a little bit difficult to drive when you've got 500 horsepower on tap, and it all comes in with a big rush. It takes a few races to really get into the swing of things.
Yes, I believe at the start when Moffat did his first race, everyone expected him to come out and knock Johnson off, but as he told us at the time, he was going to drive himself into this car. He's not like Moffat or Brocky or any of the other drivers who can just naturally jump in a car and bring the neck to the car. Dearie me, they're not only on land here watching the racing today, even out on the lake.
I bet you they didn't pay their attention.
Oh, that's Medeki's in. Medeky in and out of the pits. So that was for a set of shoes.
Yeah, I'm certain I saw some damage on the front right of his car, and that's probably what caused him to pit. But look at the action here now as Colin Bond gets right on the rear of Larry Perkins, pulls out to make a passing manoeuvre with Moffat slotting in behind him as well as they come down past the start-finish line, take the king down into the carousel. Thick and fast the action coming in this round 6 of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship.
So but Larry's making them work for every dime that they can pick up off the pavement today. Meanwhile, though, up front, John Bowe, that's who leads the race, and Tony Longhurst, who the Queenslanders will now adopt as the race favourite.
Tony has opted to take the conservative way with rubber. This is a very tough track on tyres, as so many of them are in the Australian Touring Car Championship Series. Tony has gone for D14 Dunlops. That's the hardest available race compound. And the man he's chasing, John Bowe, is possibly on D3s, which are a slightly softer compound. And Tony maintained that as this race unfolded, he had a better chance of getting with the leaders. Well, he's already there.
And, well, he was, but he's dropped back a bit behind Bowe at this stage. He closes up. Oh, there's Andrew Bagnall. I thought he was on his way to Brisbane Expo.
I wonder if he's been out there since we saw him last.
Big promo that for Andrew. So they came out of Yokohama corner. And Tony swaying it around a bit in the breeze here with the Freeport car. Getting a little sideways. And the track's getting wider for him as well. So whether or not the 14s have gone off. But he comes on in fits and spurts, Tony Longhurst. He'll drop back 100 metres and come charging at John Bowe like a raging bull. But as you can see, Bowe still controls it. We take race cam out of Alan Moffat's ANZ Banking Sierra. It's great to see the little guy with the glasses doing so well and being so competitive in amongst the field here today. There's Perkins, Bond. Bagnall's just had a big lose. He's back on the racetrack in front of them. And here comes Moffat down the outside as well as Bond sneaks by. One wheel on the grass, and here comes Moff straight down the outside on Perkins. Goes in deep. Perkins drifts across the racetrack at him. Is he going to give him racing room coming out? No,
he had to lose out there.
Said you make your own luck in this business, Al.
There was really only one answer to that one.
Yes.
Gee, look at Bond pull away now that he's got round Perkins. Car 31, Drew Price has pulled off.
Well, Price exits the 6th round here at Lakeside this afternoon.
And up front, I can tell you that Dick Johnson has only put 3 or 4 seconds into his teammate John Bow, so he's a long way short of getting back that minute.
This will be good this time down the start, finishing straight. Watch Moffat. He's trying to get it all launched up, get alongside. Ooh. 31 creating a bit of a brush fire there. I don't think the driver's well aware of it, but the grass is reasonably green here at Lakeside. He's got his little extinguisher. And the marshal is there to help out. As they come out of the turn, as we can see, Alan Moffat has worked his way past Larry Perkins. They go beneath the bridge. So we'll see now whether or not Moffat can haul in Colin Bond in the Caltex entry. Larry was doing a good job there of trying to hold his place on the racetrack, but he's going to have Brock right underneath him the next lap or so, because I think the tyres have gone off completely on the number 11 Commodore. Just look at the ground that he's made up, coming up to half distance lap, 30 of 60, round 6 of the Touring Car Nationals from Lakeside International Raceway.
Larry Perkins really now paying the weight penalty as we check the placings on the Castrol scoreboard. John Bow, leader on the track from Longhurst, Bond, Moffat and Perkins, with Johnson suffering a 1-minute penalty for jumping the start.
Welcome back to Lakeside International Raceway, and the race leader, John Bow, car number 18, heading into the pit area. What a shock here today at Lakeside. We've had just so many incidents so far, and there is Bow heading in, race leader for the last 15 laps of the race.
Well, that puts Longhurst into the lead, and Colin Bond will now be in second place in the race. Bad luck for John Bow. Johnson, of course, being penalised a minute for jumping the start. The Shell team cars in all sorts of trouble here today in the 6th round of the championship. Oh, what's happened to Colin Bond?
There's Bondy. Oh, dearie me, they're dropping out like flies.
Look, Colin had managed to go past Peter Brock and Alan Moffat, so this would, in fact, lift Moffat to second place. There's the race leader. I'll get the gaps for you as soon as I can.
Longhurst in front. Moffat's now running second. Brock is third. And Larry Perkins is running fourth.
Yeah, and there's Jim Richards about to be lapped by Tony Longhurst. Let's go down to the pit lane with Peter McCabe.
Well, it's a rare sight to see a Shell Ford Sierra in the pits before acceptances. John Bow, what's your problem?
Well, Peter, I had a bit of a shunt up the backside from somebody on the second lap, and now a rear suspension member has failed. Now, whether they're related or not, I don't know, but anyway, it's collapsed on one side and it's not going. What more can I say?
It seems that trouble comes in twos, because your teammate Dick Johnson has been penalised 1 minute for jumping the start. You didn't know about that one?
No, I didn't. That's unbelievable.
And we see now, just as we're talking, Colin Bond has come into the pits with an engine that sounds decidedly sus, so perhaps the pace of this race is telling on a few of the Ford Sierras.
Very, very hard circuit. It's so hard on the suspension and so hard on the driver, not to mention the tyres. It's unbelievable. Like, I hope we get a finish.
Were you feeling you could keep Tony Longhurst at bay while you're out there and running hard?
Yeah, I think so. You know, our plan to start with was not to get too sideways and get cocked up on the tyres, but my car started feeling a bit strange after I got that biff, so I was only going as fast as was necessary. Mind you, that was 9.5 tenths, so I think we could have made it, but who knows?
OK, well, bad luck, John Bow, but even if he drops today's race, I think Dick Johnson will still be up front in the Touring Car Championship.
I've got no doubt about that, Peter, but the man who's up front and leading round 6 before a hometown crowd is Tony Longhurst in the Freeport Sierra, looking like putting two together. Amaru Park last weekend and round 6 of the Shell Nationals here today.
The gap between Tony Longhurst and Alan Moffat is about 38 seconds. That's a really healthy lead, so there's no real pressure now on Tony. And it was 3.21 seconds from Moffat back to Peter Brock, but I noticed on the last lap that Brock seemed to have gone missing, and Larry Perkins would now have moved up into third place. So I'll try and sort this out. I suspect that Brock must have had some sort of a problem, although I believe he is still running.
Well, the question, I guess, to be answered now, has Tony Longhurst stretched the tyres on the Sierra? We saw Andrew Bagnall come charging back through the field. He went to the pits for some fresh shoes, and Tony Longhurst really needs now just to settle down and not throw the car around. He's been giving it a bit of sideways treatment following John Bass, still is, come to think of it. And Moffat is sitting in this, starting out of position number 9. Has made it up to second and could be sitting in the box seat here if Tony has to pit. Let's go down to the pits, Peter McKay.
Till this moment hadn't dropped a lap in the 1988 Shell Touring Car Series. Bondi, what are you back here for?
All we did was the plug out the computer came out. The car was running perfectly. Started to miss a little bit, then it just cut out on me. And I thought it might just start going again, but it wouldn't. But now, got it going. It just run on 3 cylinders, that's all.
Well, 3 cylinders is nowhere near 4 cylinders in touring car racing. We'll hope that Bondi gets out there, but at this stage it doesn't look like there's any number of guarantees.
Thank you, Peter. There's the man that runs third on the track at the moment for Holden Motorsport, Larry Perkins.
And he's 8.45 seconds down on Alan Moffat at the moment. And behind Larry, Peter Brock, and then quite some distance behind, we have Jim Richards.
Well, there's Larry trying to drive it as straight as he possibly can, not get the back of the car around, not heat up the tyres at all, because he's only 8 back, as Neil said, behind, of course, Alan Moffat, and we've got Dick Johnson coming up in the background as well, trying to pick
Dick's
up
gone like a scolded cat. He's really doing some amazing lap times. Larry Perkins coming up towards Phil Ward in the Mercedes 190, the BP Festo entry. He and Lyndon Ruthmule are running those little cars in as many rounds of the Touring Car Championship as they can. The cars have actually been really dialing in some flash lap times. And Wardy was the captain of excitement yesterday beneath that bridge and down through the left-hander at Hungary. Placings on the Castrol scoreboard. Tony Longhurst leads from Alan Moffat. Larry Perkins in third. Peter Brock is fourth, and Jim Richards in fifth in the Mobil BMW. Back in a moment.
Lap 42 of 60, round 6 of the Shell Ultra Touring Car Championship from Lakeside. Alan Moffat in the ANZ Banking Sierra number 9. Runs second on the road behind Tony Longhurst at the moment. Moffat, as we mentioned before, started out of position number 9 as we're getting stronger in each round of the Touring Car Championship. Expect him to be a gun-ho front runner in the next round, which of course is a week from today. And of course Sandown. Moffat, 48 years of age, a veteran of the sport from Melbourne. First 73, 76, 77 and 83 touring car title, 4-time winner of the James Hardy 1000, champion of the Endurance Series 82, 84 and first in the 87 World Touring Car Championship round at Monza in Italy. One of the most experienced drivers, if not the most experienced driver out there in the field today.
Second place on the track, Alan Moffat, and interesting to try to juggle all of the positions and the changes that we've had. Dick Johnson, although penalised a minute for jumping the start, is now in fact in third place.
Yes, that would probably bring him up. Andrew Beckie, of course, was running strongly. Has dropped back behind him, so too is Larry Perkins. There's the Celtic CXT crew going to work on Colin Bond's car. Hot work there in the cockpit.
This is really quite confusing, all this, because Longhurst has just lapped Larry, who's fourth, and you have to subtract 60 seconds from where Dick is and sort of add it all up. It's highly confusing. So you end up with Longhurst, Moffat, Dick and Larry Perkins, and only 3 of those drivers, Longhurst, Moffat and Johnson, are on the same lap, and Moffat's in danger of being lapped, if you know what I mean.
Valvoline.
I think what it really means is that Dick can beat everybody bar Longhurst the way things are going.
Yeah, that's about it. So the thing that I'll try and now work out, if I can just get my abacus squared up on the desk here, is whether or not Moffat can be passed by Dick Johnson, and that's quite a possibility by the look of it.
Yeah, I think it's got every chance of happening. There's Johnson coming out of the carousel. The exit from Yokohama corner down through the sweeper now. That's coming beneath the bridge. Now let's take race cam and just show you.
That's the tricky part. That's where the camber changes, just as they come around that kink there. And as you saw, the car drifted from the inside left to the outside right of the circuit. It's a nasty feeling in the pit of the stomach, but it does set you up nicely for the next corner. Over the top of Motorcraft Hill, and down. This is high speed and dangerous. A lot of the cars tend to get off the left-hand side of the circuit as they exit this corner. We saw it happen to Tony Longhurst. You get the wheels in the rough out there on the left, and then if you try and get it back, you can spear right across to the right-hand side of the circuit. Quite dangerous.
You think the track's bumpy there? That's just where they repaved it to make it smooth. But from here on, gee, these Fords are awesomely fast. Even when you listen to Dick's two cars go by, they sound like they're doing 1,000,000 miles an hour. They sound different to the other Ford Sierras. And I would make the bold statement that these are probably the two fastest Ford Sierras in the world at the moment. It would be a fascinating confrontation to see them up against the Texaco cars. Just have a listen to this thing inside. It really has some grunt. Just recorded a lap time of 56.46, which is outrageous at this stage of the race. He's bringing it home. Dick Johnson, laps running out for him as they work their way up towards the 50 mark of 60 round Lakeside. But he's given the fans a show here. Most of them have been made aware of the fact that Dick has been penalised 60 seconds for jumping the start. He's trying to come back through and race the clock. Man is going to make it extremely difficult for him is Tony Longhurst, and there is Alan Moffat just going through. Alan running second on the road at the moment. There's Johnson running third in the car, number 17. So you have to recall, you have to think about it all. Johnson hasn't been passed by anybody. He's been carving his way through the field at 1,000,000 miles an hour, but he was pinged for creeping at the line. So
right, but it's pretty easy to work out now. Things become clear. Lapping in 56 seconds as he is, he's only got to pass Moffat and get 4 seconds in front of him, and he is in fact then in second place in the race. Yes.
I knew you were good for something, Wilco.
I tell you what, it's hard keeping track of just what's been going on in this race.
Yes, it's been an interesting race. Probably with the fact
always is up here. It's always a great race.
Never had a bad touring car round at Lakeside ever. And Tony Longhurst will lift the people here of Queensland. I'll point out very quickly the only man that's capable of beating Dick Johnson this year is another Queenslander. He's done a top job last weekend, second round of the AMSCAR series. The last heat was a fine performance from Tony and from the team. And their car's been getting gradually better and better, and certainly on the pace today. So there's Moffat in the foreground. Then Dick, and there's Tony. Lap 50 of 60, and Brock's going to chase me around with a big stick at the end of the day because he in actual fact didn't drop a placing and is still in fourth and maintained his position in front of Jim Richards. There's the man of the moment, Tony Longhurst from Surface Paradise, driving the Freeport Team Sierra.
I understand there's a petition already being circulated among the other drivers to see if they can organise a 1-minute penalty for Dick Johnson at every round from here on.
That's the only way. You couldn't start him off the back of the field because he'd still win. He's given the race plenty of spice, and this man deserves heaps of praise. Well, so too Frank Gardner, the Freeport team. Everyone naturally, oops, again skates it around. There's the man running fourth. Astro Boy himself, Peter Brock. The 05 Mobile BMW, and coming up behind Larry Perkins.
A great deal of merit in Brock's drive in this race when you consider that he was being swamped by Bond, Moffat and the rest of them in the early stages of the race. And then all of a sudden he came back with a vengeance. The attrition rate has taken care of one or two of his adversaries, and he's headed for a good finish in this event.
It was great to listen and watch the... We've got two race cams here. Wouldn't know which one to show you. We'll take Dick Johnson because he's zeroing in on the tail of Alan Moffat, looking for a shot at second place here. Oh, Moffat trying to hold a steady line through here. Look at the horsepower difference between these two cars, though, as they skate out of the turn. Watch Johnson pull out of the draft now and say, see you, Alan. That's the gap. That's just how much more squirt Johnson's motor has over most of the Sierra. And then we take the second race cam unit in Alan Moffat's car to show you the disappearing tail of the Palmer Tube Tech car just ahead of him.
Johnson stretching out that gap, and as we said before, once it gets beyond 4 seconds on Alan Moffat, it will put Dick officially in second place in the race behind Tony Longhurst. Oh! Longhurst is gone. Johnson's going to end up winning this.
Not just yet. That was a moment.
He's got it back.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the last lap I've been sitting here really confused about where they all are, because there was only 4 seconds between Johnson and Longhurst the last time round, so now I'm really confused.
This is the man who leads the race. Car number 3, Tony Longhurst, had a moment at the carousel, exiting Yokohama corner. And I think that Tony, I think you will find, is now chasing with probably overheated tyres, and he's going to have to steady himself down. He's really been just tailing this car around since the race started. Just as well he elected to go for the hardest compound that he could find.
I'll go and check my facts, but I have a feeling that there's been a big reshuffle of the placings here, and Tony isn't the leader, but I won't commit myself. I'm going to go and do some homework.
There's Longhurst, car number 3. The man who picked up the race lead from Dick Johnson when he was penalised 60 seconds for jumping the start. Longhurst goes through beneath the bridge, comes down into Hungary corner. So he really has
something dropping a bit of oil here. Yeah, it's Steve Williams in the Commodore by the look of it. He's got some problems, or a bit of blue smoke coming out of the left-hand side. Well, I wonder what happened to Tony Longhurst.
Not got himself in a spin, I'd say, down in the carousel. It's cost him valuable ground, and whether or not that has allowed Dick Johnson, in fact, to assume the lead, it again depends on the clock, not so much on their positions on the track because of that penalty. Whether or not Johnson has managed to outrace the clock and snatch a victory here remains to be seen. There's still a few laps remaining, and we can see that Longhurst has recovered from the spin and is out there making good time again. It's going to be a desperate finish, this. I bet it's got the CAMS officials scratching their heads.
Oh, goodness me.
Out of shape.
That was what Tony was like yesterday. He's certainly a brave driver down there. He gives it absolutely everything, and that's, I guess, why Frank Gardner picked him. He gets her up on 2 wheels and does not let go. Steve Williams disappointed. The VK Commodore's got a problem. He's pulled to the pits.
Quick check under the hood, see what the problems are.
This is a scrap for the minor placings. Unofficially, I have Larry Perkins in 4th place, being chased by Peter Brock.
Yeah, that's the one of the 270s in this race. This is the battle for 4th place, and that Alan Moffat's in 3rd place.
Interesting confrontation with 2 very different types of vehicles. Everybody opting for pretty hard tyres in this race. The mobile cars are certainly shod with a hard one at the moment. They expected to be a lot stronger towards the end of the race than they were in the first bit. We're getting up towards the end of this almost 1 hour confrontation. So Peter Brock really closing as they go up to the right-hander at Motorcraft Hill, make the run down the bottom. This is where Larry's car would really suffer with a bit of grip late in the race, but it should be pretty quick down the straight.
There's Perkins once again through the kink down to the right-hander. Surprising performance by Perkins today.
Certainly shown a lot of improvement here at Lakeside for a big and powerful car around the circuit.
Well, he had terrible problems in Adelaide with no grip, and he's had a couple of other silly little problems throughout the championship, so this will be welcome points for Larry Perkins.
There's the leader, and he is the leader. We've had people running all over the place, just double-checking the split between he and Johnson, and it confirms that Johnson has not outrun the penalty of 60 seconds. So Longhurst is the race. Oh, let's hope he remains that way for his sake. He's the race leader, Tony Longhurst. Johnson is 2nd. Moffat is 3rd. Perkins 4th. Brock 5th. And Jim Richards, of whom we've seen very little today, shuffled back in the pack, is in 6th place.
Stopwatch shows 14.07 seconds between Dick Johnson and Tony Longhurst as they went past the box that time.
Well, he won't make that up in 2 laps, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. If Longhurst can just cool it just a little bit to bring it on home, but he is just throwing this car around. If anyone wants to do a reliability run on a Sierra, just give it to Tony. He has manhandled this car around the racetrack. He has not been easy on the tyres, I don't believe, since the race started. He's had one heck of a race with John Bowe, threw the car around all the time. As we mentioned earlier, started the race with the hardest compound tyres the team could lay their hands to. And he is heading towards victory in the Australian Touring Car Championship round at Lakeside today. Tony Longhurst coming down to the right-hander. This is where he wound up in strife before. Coming up to put a lap on Alan Moffat. Moffat doing a bit of racing with Tony, so Tony just elects to sit in here. Oh, dearie me, he covers a lot of ground. He's got this Sierra wound up pretty tight, and he just wants to race anyone. There's one thing you've got to say about Tony Longhurst. He is, in the new breed, he is the racer. Here he comes over the top of Motorcraft. Will probably take a shot at Moffat the next time that they head down the start-finishing straight. They come through Castrol now. They work the front straight. Coming up to the line, Tony Longhurst in car number 3.
Gee, he made some ground on Moffat that time down the straight, an enormous amount.
This is where he had trouble about 6 laps ago. The car swapped in. It's right this time, though, as he comes out of there.
So for Tony, he finished 2nd in the opening round at Calder, 4th at Simmons Plains. Didn't start at Winton. He had so many problems on Saturday in practice. And in the last 2 race meetings, in the Touring Car Championship at least, Wanneroo and Adelaide, not finishing either of them. I think he finished 3rd in the first leg of the James Hardy Amscar Series last week at Amaroo, and then came back strong with a win in the second heat. And seems to have done everything right today in the most topsy-turvy round of the Shell Ultra Touring Car Championship we've seen so far.
Here he comes down the start-finishing straight, and the flag out. Final lap is out. Final lap forward, but I believe as they've gone across the line, just ahead of Tony Longhurst was in fact Dick Johnson, so they've hung the 1 lap to go signal out in Johnson's favour. Keeping in mind that with Tony getting it out in the grass that time. He's a fighter to the end. There's Dick Johnson, of course, the man who's going to get binged 60 seconds off the start. But you'll find that Dick Johnson will come out in rather controversial circumstances. The checkered flag should come out now as they come across the line. The checkered flag is out. Johnson actually reaches there first. But, of course, Tony Longhurst in the Freeport Sierra coming down into the last corner now. So Longhurst stretching it out to go to the wire and just making it to
16 seconds was the gap between Dick and Tony at the end.
And of course Alan Moffat with the next one to come on in behind them in the ANZ Sierra. Then look at the scrap back behind them with Larry Perkins and of course Peter Brock. Well, what a race today at Lakeside International Raceway. Dick Johnson, car number 17. I guess in the final analysis, really had to win this by 60 seconds to claim victory.
Yeah, it was always going to be a pretty hard job. Yeah, the opposition a little bit tough at the moment. But it has been a great season for Dick nonetheless. Okay, he's jumped 10 or 15 feet at the start, but he's still run away from them in terms of driving and engineering ability. 6 pole positions so far in 6 rounds of the Touring Car Championship. The clear leader of the Shell Series and the NEC Car Star. The Grand Master of the Parkroyal pole position, and the crowd really loving everything he's done.
Well, they'll come back to sort it out. As they went across the line, the flag went out in favour of Johnson over Longhurst and Moffat. Let's recap them for you on the scoreboard. These are provisional results only. Johnson first across the line, Longhurst second, Moffat third, Brock fourth, and Jim Richards finishes fifth.
Six of the Touring Car Championship, Dick Johnson, Tony Longhurst and Alan Moffat, and I think we'll talk to them in the reverse order if we may. I'll get Alan Moffat over because it's been a long time coming for the ANZ Sierra. Still a lot of development work to be done there, Alan, but today, after blowing the start, if you don't mind me saying so, it was a big comeback.
It was good to give everybody a chase there, but Dick's got his combination going so well that once I got through the field, I didn't have enough left in me to keep going.
Must give you a lot of encouragement, though, from here on out.
Well, the car was running beautifully, and same motor since Perth, so I think if we look towards the future, with Bathurst being the future for everybody, we're looking good. I want to thank my team for working so hard on the car.
Okay, Alan, thanks a lot. And Tony Longhurst, well, there's the subject of a 1 minute penalty, I guess, against Dick for allegedly jumping the start. If that's the case, it probably puts you in front as the victor, and if that's the case, it's be 2 wins in 2 weeks over him.
Well, from where I was sitting, I thought both Andrew and Dick jumped the start, but whether that's the case or not, I was racing with John, and about halfway through the race, my crew gave me that Dick had a minute penalty, so I backed off a little bit to about 3 or 4 tenths off the pace that I was on, and about 20 laps later, they gave that Dick was leading, and so then I really started to get stuck into it. I got into the fives, and I think I was catching Dick fairly a couple of tenths of a second a lap and had to lose at the end there.
Yeah, I was going to say, you had a hell of a drive and it was getting a bit all over the place at the finish.
Well, you know, I was trying my best. The car is a little bit slower on the straights than Dick's car, and that's the only place you can make up the time in the corners. But, you know, my pits gave me that he had a minute penalty. Then they said he didn't have a minute penalty, and, you know, I was just driving as hard as I could.
Well, it was a great drive. Congratulations on that. Dick, the man with the slipping clutch.
Well, actually, with these particular sorts of clutch on the line, if the red light's on too long, which it appeared to be on forever, the clutch just picks up and the car just moves even though you got your foot on the clutch. And obviously that's what's happened. And I drove for the first 40 laps without a clutch at all. So it was reasonably tough work. And if they give me a minute penalty, well done to Tony. But that's the way it goes.
Dick, you must be getting to know all of these people fairly well, because every time we stand here at the finish line, you keep getting decorated.
Well, I don't mind that at all, Wilco, because, you know, Shell are a great bunch of people, and I only like to do good for them. Thank you.
Well, Tony Longhurst is being sashed as the winner, so I guess that 1 minute penalty is going to stick. That's the situation down here on the grid, ladies and gentlemen. Looks like Tony wants to share it, but as we said, there's no appeal against the 1 minute penalty, apparently, and Tony Longhurst has been sashed as the winner of this 6th round of the championship. Next round, round 7 of the championship from Sandown next week. Of course, you'll see it exclusively on the Australian Television Network. Hope you can join us.